If you recall, in yesterday's gospel reading, our Lord mentioned that unless our righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, we will never enter into the kingdom of heaven. And then he goes on to list, various examples. It's wrong to murder, but it's also wrong to be angry with your neighbor, and you're liable to judgment and, a severe punishment for just having the wrong attitude. And he's continuing in today's gospel reading. The same theme is continued. So, yes, of course, it's wrong to commit adultery, but it's also wrong to look at a woman with lust, to be filled with lust. In other words, we have to purify that interior disposition of ourselves, whether it's towards lust or anger or resentment or whatever it may be. We all have maybe certain things that we might be attracted to or sometimes even addicted to. So we need to purify ourselves. We need to leave our hearts free to be able to love God and to love our neighbor as we are called to. But in today's gospel reading, he adds something else that is very, very noteworthy. And he says, if your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Same as with your hand or your feet, right? Cut these things off. In other words, if these things are leading you into sin, he's saying cut it off. Does he really and actually want us to cut off our hand and pluck out our eye? Well, no, not really, but it would be better for us to lose these members than to end up in hell. So what he's really saying is, look, you need to go to extremes to overcome your sinful inclinations. Go to extremes. Don't cut off your hand, don't pluck out your eye, but be willing to go to extremes. In other words, you have to realize and you need to understand that making it to heaven is far better, far more profitable for you, far more satisfying and fulfilling, gives you greater happiness than any sinful attachment here on earth could ever give you. Even if you took all the happiness of all the people in the entire world and added that up and just applied it to one person, it wouldn't equal the happiness that you will experience in heaven. And that happiness in heaven will be for all eternity. So this is part of the message. And unless we understand this, the tendency of us is to seek happiness in the here and now. We tend to be impatient. We don't want to wait until after we die to go to heaven. We want happiness right now. And in some way, it is good that we desire happiness right now. But the problem is we often look for it in the wrong places. So we need to seek our happiness in God. Now notice in today's first reading from the first book of Kings, the word of the Lord came to Elijah and said to him, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." And then there's this mighty wind, so strong, so powerful that it even breaks rocks. Then there's an earthquake, and then there's a fire. But God is in none of these things. And there's a significance here. Very often we think of God as this almighty being, which he is, but we think he manifests himself in these ways by punishing us through an earthquake or a mighty wind that destroys everything. I saw a video of a tornado in the U.S. It was, oh my gosh, it was really, really scary. And the power of the winds, right? It can cause so much damage. And yes, sometimes it's true that, God allows these things to happen because we have strayed from the ways of God. But very often people associated these things with the punishment of God, and that God is in the wind, God is in the fire, God is in the earthquake. But he's not, as we see in this passage. But, some commentators, they point out that it's not just manifesting the power of God. I mean, these things manifest power, and it's not just focusing on the power aspect of it, but when it comes to a mighty wind, we hear the wind. And basically what it's saying is you can't really hear God with your physical ears. We feel the earthquake when there's an earthquake. And it's saying that you can't experience God with your feelings. And we see a fire with our eyes. We might feel the heat of it also, but it's saying that you can't see God with your physical eyes. So then how can you see God? We can experience God in our soul, in our spirit. So God is not in all these things, but these things precede the coming of God, and then there's silence, complete silence. And Elijah hears the tiny voice. But the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. Silence. There's that book by Cardinal Sarah, The Power of Silence, and he points out that we have too many distractions, too much noise, too much things going on in our mind. We need to be calm. We need to be quiet. We need to be silent. Ideally, if we can even find a place where it's totally quiet. It is in this silence that we can hear the tiny voice of God speaking to us. In other words, when God comes to us, he doesn't want to overwhelm us. He doesn't want to frighten us. He comes to us in a gentle, soft voice. Now notice what God says to Elijah when he comes to him in this soft voice. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here?" This seems like a rather odd question when we consider the fact that it's God who told him to go there. God told him to go there, and then God says, "Elijah, what are you doing here?" And you see, there's an important message here for all of us also. What are you doing here? Not just here in church, but what is your purpose here on earth? This is really what this question is all about. And you see, we often think, oh, I'm just a nobody. I don't really play much of a role in God's plan of things. Maybe I'm just a, whatever job you have. Maybe you're a banker. Maybe you work in a bank. Maybe you work in a factory and you think, I'm just a nobody. But that's not true. In the eyes of God, you are a somebody. You are someone very, very important. And each person has a significant role to play. No person is insignificant. St. Paul emphasizes this. Even if the smallest member, I mean, think of and St. Paul makes the analogy with the human body. He says, the human body is made up of many cells, many different parts. But each part of the body is significant. Each part of the body has a significant role to play for the good of the whole body. And when one member suffers, all the members suffer. And the opposite is also true. When one member is holy, he or she can influence all the other members of the body. So we all have a significant role to play. And, after asking Elijah, what are you doing here? He tells him to go and do stuff. You go and anoint this person and that person. In other words, I have a purpose for you. I have a mission for you. But notice Elijah, he says, Lord, all the prophets of God, they've been persecuted, they've been killed. I'm the only one left. In other words, he's feeling sorry for himself. He's complaining, God, I'm the only one left. I'm basically in hiding. I'm fleeing for my life. And basically God is saying, don't be afraid. I have a purpose for you. I have a mission for you. This is what I want you to go and do. Now, when we make the effort to be silent in the presence of God, to be truly attentive to the voice of God, God does speak to us. And he does tell us some of the things that we need to do in our own lives. And sometimes that might entail overcoming certain inclinations, certain sinful inclinations or bad habits. But it's also motivating us to practice greater charity. And it's been pointed out that, any Catholic or any Christian who really takes their faith seriously, they're going to make the effort to evangelize. They're going to make the effort to speak out against injustices in society, such as abortion and so many other things. In other words, a real Christian is going to be an active Christian. And I kind of emphasized that yesterday. It's not enough just to overcome our sin. We need to overcome our bad inclinations. But we need to have the right inclinations, and it's not enough just to have the right inclinations. We need to act on those inclinations also. So what does it mean to be truly Christian? Well, living our faith the way that God calls us to, striving to promote the kingdom of God here on earth, opposing injustices in society, trying to stand up for the most defenseless, the poor, the uneducated, but also the innocent child in the womb. And we can go on and on, the young children in the schools who are being corrupted by all kinds of ideologies. Like, if we were all united, we could easily overturn these things. But the problem is we're not united. The problem is we're not really living our faith as Christians ought to. And so, yes, I encourage you, spend some time alone with God in silence. Listen to the voice of God. Many people don't listen to me. I mentioned the other day a friend of mine, who had been away from the church, and I bumped into him, and he came to church with his family, and they were all dressed up for a Sunday Mass. Most Catholics don't even dress up nice for a Sunday Mass. So he and his family were all dressed up because he understood that, going to Mass is important. You got to dress up. So even though he hadn't been going to church for many, many years, and he said to me afterwards, "Oh, you're really powerful. Like you have the ability to influence people." And I said, I wish. If that were the case, all of you would be saints by now. But it's not the case. So in other words, you're not listening to me. Okay, listen to the small, still voice of God. Just a few announcements. As you know, on Sunday after the 12 noon Mass, we will have an outdoor procession with the statue of St. Anthony, and afterwards there will be a lunchbox provided for all the participants. Also tomorrow, Saturday morning, in the morning after the morning Mass in the parish hall, there's a patricians meeting which everyone is invited to, and the topic will be on the saints. So very interesting topic. There will be time for discussions and feedback also. And also tomorrow, the Catholic Women's League of our parish, they will be conducting a plant and flower sale here in the parking lot or just outside. So it promises to be a good day. So hopefully you can come out and check out maybe both of those events.